Well, hello and welcome. I'm Geraldine Wilkins, the Living Water Quilter, and this is Quilt Conversations Live. And we are live on Amazon, Facebook, and YouTube. I am so glad to be with you. I'm excited about this new series, this new DIY series, and it's all about crafting. Quilts, we're going to look at art quilt today. We're going to look at baskets another week. All DIY, do it yourself. And I'm going to talk about the tools and techniques that I use to make these DIY projects. So welcome. I'm so glad you're here. If you're on Amazon Live, unmute and say hello. Say hello in the chat. If you're on Facebook, hello and welcome. And if you're on YouTube, the same to you. Welcome. I'm so glad you're here. It's good to be back. I missed seeing you last week. I was out of town, but I am back and I am ready to share with you another fun project. Did you see the beginning photo? I am going to talk about an art quilt and it's called Love Letters. And we're going to look at the tools I use to create it. Do you like quilts? Do you like the idea of designing your own quilts? Well, guess what? There is a software for both PC and Mac where you can design your own quilts. That's right. And for those on Amazon, it is called EQ8, Electric Quilt 8. I just highlighted in the carousel. And that is how I designed the quilt behind me, as well as the Love Letters quilt. So I want to talk about this software because it has changed the way I design quilts. And you don't have to be a professional. You can make these designs yourself. The software is not difficult. Hello, Sonia. How are you? I'm so glad you're here. Sonia saying hello from YouTube. Those of you watching on Amazon, so glad you're here, Sonia. Welcome, welcome. So, Love Letters. Hello, Rochelle. So glad to see you. Rochelle's over there on YouTube as well. We're talking about love letters. Let me show you what I'm talking about in case you missed the intro or the thumbnail associated with tonight's live. And there goes Jan from Arizona. Hello, Jan. This is the Love Letters quilt. Now you can guess why it's called Love Letters, right? Because of the word love. And this was designed in EQ8, Electric Q8, which you can use in PC or a Mac. And I want to show you how easy it is. Now, Electric Quilt comes with many quilt blocks that you can mix and match to design quilts. Now, I was at first intimidated by the idea of using software to design quilts. But guess what? They have resources. And I said, you know what? I'm just going to take it slow and easy, make it simple. So I want to do that for you. I want to show you on my computer. I'm using a MacBook Air, which I'll highlight in the carousel on Amazon Live. And I use that on my Mac. I use Electric Quilt 8 to design quilts on my Mac. You can use it on a PC. I'm using a laptop, but you can use a desktop, PC, or laptop, and it's not difficult. Let me go to the software. I'm going to get my laptop so that you can see it. All right, there it is. Let's take a look. Now, this is the first time I've done this, shown my laptop on screen. So hopefully it all goes well. Here's my laptop, and I'm going to choose Electric Quilt 8. So now, if you have an earlier version of Electric Quilt, you can get an upgrade to 8. There was Electric Quilt 7, but now 8 is the most current version. And it by far is fantastic. It is better than 7. Big improvements. So I'm going to start it. Now I have to share with you that last year, because I use Electric Quilt 8 to design my own quilts for myself, for publication, for different things. They reached out to me and said, hey, would you be a featured designer on our website? So I'm a featured Electric Quilt 8 designer. I am on their website. However, I must say that this software was purchased by me. They did not give it to me. It's my own software. And they in no way are influencing me sharing this software. They don't even know that I'm sharing the software today. I didn't tell them because it's just what I do. I'm sharing with you the tools that I love. So this is Electric Quilt 8. And don't be confused by all of the little buttons. I always say, no matter what the software is or the website, just click on a button and see what happens. So there are a number of things that are here, and I'm just going to highlight these 3 columns. The first column says Design Quilts, and you can design from scratch. You can start with a quilt project. They have some quilt projects already done for you, so you can just go in and start coloring to learn the software. Or you can open an existing project. That's the first column. The second column, let me open this up here on Amazon Live, make sure I have that highlighted. That's the software for those of you on Amazon. The next one is to draw a block. Say you want to design your own quilt block. You can do that. Or you can search their extensive block library. There are so many blocks in the library that comes with the software. Then you can work with not just color. In the third column, you can work with fabric. So say, for instance, you have some fabric like I have here. You have fabric and you want to use this exact fabric in the design. You can scan this in and use it as you work in the software. So I love that feature. Now I already started and I want to show you the existing project for love letters. I'm going to click on Open Existing Project. And there it is at the top. I've called it Amazon Project Demos because I'm going to do some demos in the future. So I'm going to have a file just for Amazon and YouTube. So now it's going to open. This second window gives you the option to go directly to the quilt, to go to the quilt blocks in the project. So each project has quilts that you're designing, blocks that you're using for the quilts, fabrics you're using for that project. You get to select. It's basically a workroom. In your workroom, you have quilts you're designing, blocks you're using for that, fabrics, and then you can use colors. Say you don't want to use fabrics yet. You just want to use different colors. So there's a rainbow of colors that you can choose from to color your quilt. Isn't that exciting? I just love this. Now, of course, you can also scan in photos. You can do thread and embroidery, but I always say start simple. Start simple. So let's go to quilts. I started one and I'm going to show you how you can start with very basic tips. Starting at the top, you have new quilt. You want to start with a new quilt. You just click that tab and it gives you layout instructions. Just below that tab, you have all these different quilt layouts that you can choose from. You just select the one that you want and it changes. Just like that. And you can start coloring based on that and add quilt blocks. Or once you've chosen a layout, which is the layout that I've chosen, a simple one, that's the new quilt, I go to layout. From layout, all you have to do is say, how many blocks do I want horizontally and how many do I want vertically? And you put that number in. So right now it's 4 by 4. I can increase it 5 across and 5 down. 5 by 5. I can decide whatever number of quilt blocks I want. Below that, it says finished size of the blocks. You choose if you want to keep the dimensions equal or unequal. Very easy. You just slide this bar and it will change the size of the quilt block. I'm right now just changing the width and you can see it adjust instantly. Or you can check a box that says keep the width and height equal. So when I make adjustments, both will change together. So easy. Then you can have sashing if you want to add sashing. You can add borders. You go back up to the very top where it says borders. You click borders. Then you have a library of different border designs that you can select. Notice how the border changes as I click each one. The borders are changing. Hopefully you can see that. And you can adjust the size of the border and you can add multiple borders. All you have to do is click add border. I just added a border, the second one. Now I can pick what design I want for that second border. So easy. So easy. After you've finished your layout, you've selected your borders, then you just go to design. You want to design the quilt. Now, I just created a whole new layout for a second quilt that's different than the love letters. But I want to go back to the original design for love letters. I can just click the glasses over here to view that workroom, with all the different quilts, and I'm going to go and select the love letters quilt because it's a work in progress. Click on that and it says, do I want to save what I've been working on? I'll say yes. Now it automatically changed to the previous design that I was working on. So easy. Now, you already see that there are some quilt blocks over here on the left. And you get to decide what quilt blocks you want to add to a quilt. You can go to the library and add more blocks to choose from. Now for love letters, I've chosen a quilt block that is foundation paper pieced. I'm going to click on open library. So I'm going to get a second window and there's the library of quilt blocks. You pick a category on the left. I'm going to click foundation pieced blocks. That's number 3. Now they have the alphabet because I'm going to do letters, right? Love letters. I'm clicking on basic letters and there are my choices for basic. The next one is funky letters, which is what I chose for the original quilt. There are Greek letters, Hebrew letters, and then ribbon letters. So many different foundation paper piecing patterns. I can choose anything that I want. Let's look at some classic quilt blocks. Here's some classics. What about the Dresden plate? And this is the fan. So many. So all I have to do is now click on the block and say I want to add a star to this. I can click on that and then I say add to sketchbook, that big plus sign on the top right hand corner. So I click that, I close it, and now it's been added right here on the bottom. On the left hand side you can see that star block. Now you're wondering, how do you get blocks into your sketch, your quilt design? There are several tools up here at the top is the block tools. So right now it's highlighted on the left, set block. I choose a block, say I choose this hourglass. You see now it's highlighted. I bring the cursor over to the block where I want to place the quilt block. I click that and now it goes into place. So I can click it anywhere where I want to place the block. Now, of course, you can always hit Command Z or Control Z on a PC and you can undo what you've done. Now, I want to continue to add my love letters for my love letters art quilt. I want to add another L. L here, O, select the V, then I'll select the E. I can continue to fill in the space. Say I don't want to put a letter in, I just want to put in color. How do we color our quilt? At the very top, we have Design tab clicked. Then we click on the next row, Block Tools, and right next to it is Fabric Tools. I'm going to click Fabric Tools. And there are a number of tools in which we can color a block. Right now, I just have the paintbrush highlighted. I'm going to pick a color. I want to change the blue to another color. Let's pick another color. Let's see, how about yellow? We're going to change that blue. I selected the yellow, and you can see there's yellow here in this large box that tells me what color I'm using for my paintbrush, and I just have to click the area that I want to be colored. It's that easy. And of course, there's a number of tools that you can use to color faster. There's the spray can, and there's color swapping, there's the eyedropper. So many tools to quickly and accurately color the quilt the way you want to color it. Now, what if I want to put in fabric instead? I don't want to put another letter over here. I want to put fabric. So I'm going to select a fabric, and then I'm going to click that box. That means this is going to be fabric and not a quilt block. So easy, right? So I'm going to color this blue area and the same color as the background. So easy to do. Fast and easy. Let's see, almost done. Remember, when you have a software like this with so many tools, just start with one tool and then progress little by little. Let's just put color in for color's sake. Let's take this green. And say you're happy now with this color arrangement. You go to the next tab at the top. The last tab is Print and Export. There you have another of options. You have a number of options, and you can look at the yardage. How much yardage do I need to make this quilt based on the size? It automatically does the math for you. Then the quilt block. You can select the quilt block, and then you see it comes up. You can print it out if you want a reference for it. You can do it as an outline, or you can do it as a quilt stencil. So I selected outline. Now if I hit preview, it will show me the outline of the quilt block. I can close that, and instead I want to see it as an applique pattern. I click on that, and then I can preview it, and it shows me as an applique pattern. That's under quilt block, but this is foundation paper pieced. So I need to get the printout for foundation paper piecing, and that is right here. For every quilt, you have a number of options in which to sew the pattern together. And you can do it by rotary cutting, foundation paper piecing, or you can do it by templates. So say I wanted to do it by a template. I would just click template. It shows me the quilt block. I say what size I want the template. Then I click preview to see if it's what I want. And there are the template pieces. And all I have to do is click print to get an opportunity to print out those pieces to make the letter L for this pattern. But I foundation paper pieced love letters. So I'm going to click foundation. Now we have to make sure that the foundation is mirrored because it's a letter. You don't want the letters to be backwards. So you have options when you foundation. In the options tab, you just click mirror, and then you will get the right configuration for the foundation pieces. And just to double check, you click preview. So you see the letter L will print backwards so that when I stitch it, it will be the right direction. So easy. I don't know what you ladies think about this software, but I love it. And there's so many different resources to be able to make your quilt. Now, say for instance, I've changed my mind. I don't really like these colors. I'm going to go back to design. I just click the design tab. And I want to change the colors. I want something different. Or in fact, let's go back to quilt blocks, and I want to add some star blocks in the pattern. I want to create the word love again. So easy to do. And then you would just color it just like before. So fun. I love this software. So what do you think? Isn't this a fun software to be able to make and design your own quilts? I love Electric Quilt. And I went through that rather quickly because this is not a full tutorial, but an introduction to Electric Quilt. But guess what? They have additional resources, and I have several of the books. Again, I purchased them on my own because I knew I needed the help. I didn't want my personal fear of the software to limit my ability to make quilts the size I want and the design that I want with the quilt blocks. It's so easy and user-friendly. So the first book, which I'm going to highlight in the carousel on Amazon, is called Lessons for Beginners. Lessons for Beginners. And I've gone through this. It's so good. Step by step with diagrams. Let's see. You can see some of them right here. Why don't I go to the overhead camera? That way you can see it a little bit better. All right, let's go to the overhead camera. There we go. I'm going to move my computer back. So there it is, Electric Quilt 8, Lessons for Beginners. And it has multiple chapters, basics, the work table, the quilt work table after the basics, block work table, and important things to know. This is laying the foundation for the software. How to navigate the tabs, how to use the quilt block library. And then, of course, you have these awesome diagrams step by step. And I love the visuals. Everything works well so that we can have success. I went through this so easily. I loved it. I'm going to close this here for a minute. I want to go back on my computer. Let's see. I can open this up to see if you ladies have any questions. All right, just want to check for those that are on Facebook. Anyone watching there need help? All right. So anyway, I love this software. So this is the book for beginners. And of course, you can go to the software company's website for additional resources. But this book, I liked having this because as you're working, you can have this right beside you and you can practice. So that's the first one for beginners, and it's a quick read. It's not heavy duty. The next one is the Block Library. Let me highlight that in the carousel. Is that there? You know what? It's not on the carousel, but I'm going to show it to you. Those of you who are watching on Amazon. This is the Block Library. You saw me briefly go into the software and show you how I can pull in blocks into my work table so that I can start designing based on what I want to do. But sometimes it's good to have a reference with all of the quilt blocks that you can see a visual guide to the quilt blocks. And you can see it by category. That way you don't have to open and close, click on this, click on that. You can just see it all right here quickly. Let's go to the overhead camera. So you have several libraries. Understanding the block coloring, searching the blocks by note card. So there's two ways in the software to search the quilt blocks. And you can go by category and or by, there it is, okay, or the note card. So you can look at blocks based on difficulty and piecing, holidays, events, those that are pieced, those that are appliqued. Hello, Lois. How are you? Yes, I too want to go beyond the basics. There's so much to this software, Lois. You are so right. So they have diamonds, Dresden fans. They give you all the different blocks in the library so that you can quickly get to the block that you want to use in your quilt project. I love having this library of a visual reference in a book so I can look at what I want to make. Awesome book. Okay, so that's the second one. Another good book is, okay, you've graduated, you went through the beginner, and you, just like Lois, you want to design more. But you need a little help. You need some inspiration. And what they have done is they've put together a couple of design books too. They are basically projects that are already done that help you navigate the software to show you how it was created. When we have something that is a reference point, it helps us to be able to learn the tool and then apply it for our own future designs. So I'm going to highlight one in the carousel. It's called Designing Quilts, Tricks from EQ Experts. So these are EQ design experts who have already gone down that path of beginner. They've learned a lot and now they want to share it with you. I'll highlight that in the carousel for those watching on Amazon. This is another great tool. You want to take it to the next level. Maybe you already have EQ8, but like Lois, you want to do more. Hey, Elaine, how are you? I'm so glad you're here over there on YouTube. Awesome. So let me go to the overhead camera so that you can see this book. It's Designing Quilts, Quilt Design Tricks from EQ Experts. So this takes it to the next level. Setting up the quilt, gathering your blocks, they go step by step. How to edit blocks. Did you know that you can start with a quilt block from their library, then go and make adjustments to that quilt block to create a whole new block? You can start with a block already in the library, but you want to make it just a little bit different. You want to change the piecing. I've done that a few times where I wanted to change the way it was pieced. Using borders, the layouts in blocks, and then coloring, recoloring. Sometimes we can change the look of our quilts just by changing the way we color it. So this goes more in depth on how to do that. I love the challenge of being able to use the software in another way, in a deeper way, a way that's going to help me express what I want to make. And it could be as simple as a t-shirt quilt. How many of you ladies have made a t-shirt quilt? Anyone else using electric quilt or have an interest in designing their own quilts? Let me know in the chat. What about you, Jan, in Arizona? Are you designing your own quilts, Rochelle? What about you, Sonia? Any ladies designing their own quilts or want to start designing their own quilts? All right, and then the last one. If you are so advanced, I have not looked at this one yet. I highlighted in the carousel. I have not used it yet. It's on my list. It's highlighted in the carousel. Oh, you love the quick tutorial. Awesome. Thank you. For a lady or a person, I don't, there's no name, but I'm going to say lady on Amazon. Thank you for watching. I'm glad you enjoyed the quick tutorial. This is all about DIY, designing your own quilts, using software that is simple to use, and using some resources like these books that they have put together to help you no matter where you are in your journey. Whether you're a beginner designer, just learning the software, or you're advanced and you just want more help from the experts. And so this is the second one on designing. And you can have so much fun designing your own quilts. Look at that. Isn't that fantastic? Just by changing the way the blocks are pieced, we get this whole new look. Okay, so Rochelle says that she's going to get the software for her birthday this year. Fantastic. Awesome. But first, I have to buy a laptop since it doesn't work on my iPad. Okay. Right. You need a laptop or you need a desktop computer. So, congratulations. What a great birthday present. Okay. So, back to love letters. I showed you how it was designed in EQ8. Gave you that brief introduction. Okay. Now, what other tools do you need? You've designed it in EQ8. Let me go back to the computer. Let me pull that up again so that we can look at that. Oh, you're welcome, Sonia. You recently purchased the program. Fantastic. Last week, and you purchased the beginner book. Wonderful. And the Designing More Quilts. Fantastic. Oh, I'm so excited for you. I can't wait to see what you design. Oh, that's going to be fantastic. Okay, so we're back at the software, and I want to print out my foundation piece. And I always say test. Now at the very top it says print and export. And I know I'm going to foundation piece, so I'm going to pick the letter L, and I'm going to click foundation. And you can renumber each section if you want. You have that option. I'm going to keep it the way it is. I know it's a letter, so it has to be mirror image, right? So I make sure that that's clicked. And then you want to save paper. So you want to print as many as you can fit on a piece of paper. And remember to always click, use the size from the quilt. So I made 4-inch blocks for love letters. So I want to make sure that when it prints the pattern, it's going to be mirrored and it's going to print the size of the quilt block I want to make. So that's all selected. I'm going to preview it. Now, guess what? You can select your very own home printer, which I'm going to highlight in the carousel. I use a Workforce printer. It's a wide format printer. It's multifunctional. I love this printer. I can do up to 11 by 17 prints. It is wireless, so I can print from my phone. I can print from any electronic device that's connected to my Wi-Fi. Oh, and hi, Tasha. So glad you're here. Tasha's still learning how to use the software. Fantastic. So a lot of ladies are using this and designing. That makes me excited. Now, I'm using my Workforce printer. Now, you need, for foundation paper piecing, you need a special paper. You don't want to use office paper. But you can not only print directly to your printer, you can save this as a PDF. So as you're designing your quilts, you can create a folder to assign all the different pieces and save it to a folder on your computer. So let me go back and close this. I'm going to close this, and see right here it says, just above tips, it says print setup. I click print setup and I can choose my printer, or I can choose PDF writer. When I choose PDF writer, it's going to save a PDF to my computer. And now the pattern is saved for you to be able to reprint it whenever you need to do so. Okay, so I've already printed it out. Just wanted to show you how to do that. Let's go back to host view here. So I printed right here on the piece of paper. I'll go to the overhead camera. And it's backwards, remember, because it's the letter L. It's a letter. We want to make sure that it's the mirror, it's the opposite, so that when we make it, it's going to be the right size. Once I have it printed out, and I'm using Newsprint. I use Newsprint, not office paper. I just highlighted that in the carousel. It's a thin paper, and you're going to use a small stitch length. Now, I'm not going to show you how to foundation paper piece, but I'll just give you a couple of tips. One tip is that when I'm cutting out the foundation paper, I go a little bit bigger than the seam allowance. This first square is represents the 4 inches. The outer square is our seam allowance. I allow myself a little bit extra beyond that. That ensures that I always have enough fabric so that when I'm trimming, I have an exact 4.5 unfinished quilt block. 4.5 unfinished. Always a little bit extra. So that when I trim it down, that 1/8 of an inch off, the block is the right size. So that's one tip. The other tip is that before I begin to foundation paper piece, I like to fold down each of the seams. I crease them. So I crease each seam that I'm going to stitch. All of these are creased. I crease all of those. And why did I do that? Because in foundation paper piecing, if you don't know, you have to use a little tool to help you get your accurate 1/4 inch seam allowance. And I'm going to show that to you, what that looks like. So here is my foundation piece all ready to create the letter L. Here is my letter L. I've already pieced it. One example, yellow background, white flowers, pink background is the L. It was like this when I was piecing it. It's already been trimmed down to size, because you're working with this on the back. You're going to put the fabric on the back and stitch on the front. That's why it has to be reversed. Okay? In foundation paper piecing, we always use a sequence. So the first one, A1, A2. I'm going to sew A2 to A1. And that's the seam that I need to stitch. And now I've creased that seam. I need a 1/4 inch seam allowance over here. So here are my 2 pieces of fabric. I know that A is my background, this yellow. So I'm going to make sure that I put enough fabric to cover this area, as well as the seam allowance on all sides. So it has to go beyond. And I always say extra fabric is better. You don't want to have to unpick it, right? So make it bigger. Oh, thank you. I'm glad you like it, Sonia. And here is the portion of the letter L. That's this section right here. I'll turn this the right orientation. This is what I'm trying to do. So it's like this. Remember, it's backwards. And so this bottom portion is what I want to stitch. I need a 1/4 inch seam allowance. I've creased that. I make sure that this is covering this area. And I use, it's called add a 1/4. Okay, so this is add a 1/4. It adds a 1/4 inch seam allowance so that when I stitch, it's going to give me the right seam allowance. And it has a little ridge on it. If you can see, this has a little ridge right here. Can you see that ridge? It's a little ridge right there. That's going to go right over the paper. So I make sure that I have that 1/4 inch seam allowance and everything is covered. I have enough fabric going around the yellow for the background, all the way around. I have enough fabric right here that's going to be this pink floral. It has to extend past these 2 creases, this crease here and this crease here. Once that's done, I bring in my add a 1/4 and I can trim right here to get that accurate 1/4 inch seam allowance. And I'm using a 45mm rotary cutter. So now I pin this, I take it to my sewing machine, and I stitch right on that line. Once that's stitched, I would turn it over and I would have that first section stitched, just like that. So that's a whole nother lesson, how to do foundation paper piecing. But I wanted to share with you the tools that I've used to make love letters. Okay, now let's look at what it looked like when I was making the actual quilt. Remember, with EQ8, not only can you print out the foundation pieces, you can print out the full pattern as a reference. So on an 8.5 by 11, you can see in the background. Hey, Carol, so nice to see you here on YouTube. So great to take the workshop in the comfort of my own home. Thank you for explaining so carefully. You're welcome. My pleasure. And hello to you ladies watching on Amazon. So there are the letters. one by one. Now, I have to confess, the first one, I did not print the letter correctly, and the E was backwards. So that was a lesson learned, and I want to share that tip with you. Don't forget, when you print out these foundation sheets in EQ8, you're going to make sure it's reversed, okay? You can print out the letters individually for foundation piecing. You can print out the quilt blocks. You can print out the whole quilt. And for everything, you can adjust and change the size. Like for me, when I'm printing it out, I like to conserve my ink. Ink is expensive. So if I don't need exactly 4.5 inches like I'm using for foundation paper piecing, I will either print in black and white if I need to, or I will reduce the size to save on ink. That's another option. So something to think about. And then what else did I do here? So that's that. Let me go. No, this is right. Okay, here we go. So I use a design wall. How many of you use a design wall when you are laying out your quilt? Let us know in the chat. This quilt behind me, you see it now here in the photo where I have a design wall. I don't have a lot of wall space or floor space, so I use this portable design wall. It's by Fons and Porter. And those who are watching on YouTube and Facebook, you can go in the description box below on YouTube. I have links to everything I'm talking about tonight. So if you need a design wall, this is an option. This is, I have it right here. It's quite large. It's by Fons and Porter, and it's 72 inches by 60 inches, and it has these grommets in it where you can use it with a clip. You can use it with a clip. So I use this clip here, and then I use something like command hooks on the wall. And the photo that you saw, let me go back to it. That's my hallway. I hang this up in my hallway. And so I can take it up and down. It's a vinyl back with a felt in the front. And I've had this for years. I love this. Oh, you plan to make a design wall very soon. Fantastic, Sonia. It's so convenient to have a design wall so you can lay out the quilt blocks and double check. And here's another tip. The other thing I do, that when I put up this design wall, I'm going to stand up so you can see how big it is. It's kind of hard to see in the photo. But this is full. This is folded in half. This is how long it is. Now now you don't see me. I'm right here. You can see how tall it is, and it's very, very wide. It's a good size. And these squares are perfect for lining up your quilt blocks. So everything is the right size. And you can just double check by lining it up. You can see it also has 45-degree lines for lining up your quilt blocks. Okay. What I like to do once it's up on the design wall is that I take my cell phone and I take a picture. That will help me see if I have a block in the wrong spot. Sometimes when we're looking at something over and over again and we think we know it's in the right place, guess what? Take a picture and right away you will see the quilt block that's in the wrong spot. Tell me how I know this. That's another tip. Okay, so it's a portable design wall, and I like this because you can take it with you to quilt retreats or to your friend's house if you get together for quilting. All right, I'm going to put this aside. Love that. And you can use command hooks that are temporary. I just highlighted that in the carousel for those watching on Amazon, or any hooks that you want. And then I just use these simple curtain clips. You can use any kind of clip that you want to then put the ring on the command hook. So that's what I use. I'll highlight that in the carousel. These are simple little clips that you can use to put onto the hook, and then you clip this to the design wall. This is a small one, but you just get the size that you need that works for your space and for the type of hook that you get. So I like this one here. It's a good one to have. And it's multi-purpose. I also use it to hang quilts inside my sewing space as a decoration. Okay, what else I want to share with you? I showed you the design wall. That's this quilt behind me, how I use it. Then let's look at how I used it for love letters. Now, I showed you the bigger quilt behind me because love letters is small. It's only 20 inches by 20 inches. And so if I showed it to you on a design wall, it would have been this big. Can you tell me again who makes that design wall? Elaine, it is Fons and Porter. Fons and Porter, and it's right here on Amazon if you want to find the link to it. Fons and Porter, 60 inches by 72 inches. It's quite large. I like it. Easy to use. So there is all my foundation paper pieced letters. Love spelled 7 times. I love this project, and it was done because it was a challenge. It was a challenge based on getting a magazine, a non-quilting magazine, and going to page 20, and then designing a quilt based on what you saw. You're welcome, Elaine. Okay, I hope you can get it in the UK. I hope you can. I decided to do this low volume color and then just have love in the center, really highlight it. But the page in the magazine, non-quilting magazine, page 20, was about a question to community leaders. And the question was, how do you show love to people in your community? And there were 7 responses. So I spelled out love 7 times in this quilt. And the fabric that I used, I'm showing you this because I used this beautiful fabric from Connecting Threads. And I'm going to highlight it in the carousel. I love Connecting Threads fabric. It's fabric that I love to get in fat quarter bundles. Fat quarter bundles. So that's 18 inches by 22 inches. A nice size. And this is enough fabric to make the letters and then some for smaller projects. I love fat quarters when I don't want to commit to a full yard. So they offer all these different colors for their basics. This is their basics, and you can get different bundles. You can get a bundle of neutrals, rainbows, all different kinds. So they have on, I've highlighted in the carousel for those on Amazon, and there's a link for you ladies on YouTube if you're interested in these fat quarter bundles by Connecting Threads. I love their fabric. Good quality fabric. Let me show you in the overhead camera so that you can see that it's a good weave, good quality fabric, and it's very soft fabric. I love their fabric. Isn't that gorgeous? Look at those colors. And I love this because it's a solid but with a slight texture. I don't know if you can see it on camera. It's not it's a solid color with like this modeling look. This, I forget what the right word is. Maybe you ladies know what I'm trying to say. But I love these fabrics. So it's not a solid without any dimension. It has these light and dark shades to it that give the fabric some dimension and texture. And I love that about this fabric. Love, love, love. Beautiful fabric. So that's the fabric I used for love letters. So far, you know, I used the software EQ8. I use my paper piecing tools like the Add a Quarter. I use the Newsprint to print out the foundation pieces, Newsprint. And you get a ream for like 500 sheets, and it'll last you a long time if you don't foundation piece often. What else? What else? The design wall and the hooks that I use. And the sewing. Now, I use a Janome, a memory craft machine, and I'll highlight that in the carousel here on Amazon. I've had it for years. I love memory craft machines. They are fantastic. And you can see here that after it was pieced on my memory craft, now I have to trim it. And you want an art quilt, if that's your desire, for it to be square, you want a good ruler to square up a quilt. And it's 20.5 inches because the quilt size that I had was 20 inches. So this ruler that you see is exactly 20.5 inches. Do you have a ruler that size? I love having this large ruler because then I can make sure that it is exactly square. I can use the diagonal line in this. I can use the vertical and horizontal lines to check to make sure that it is exactly square before I trim it. How do you square up quilts? And I was able to use all the seams when I place this big ruler on top of it because the ruler is exactly the size of the quilt before it was bound, 20.5 inches square. I love having the right tools for the right job. So this is a large ruler. This is by Creative Grids. It's 20.5 inches by 20.5 inches. And if you know Creative Grid rulers, these dots represent their grip system. So you can grip the fabric as you trim and the ruler doesn't slide. I love this big ruler. It's one of those rulers that when you need it, and you're glad you have it. You don't use it all the time. But when you have big blocks or you have a art quilt, you're going to want this ruler. What's the largest square ruler do you have in your toolbox? The next one I have is a 12.5. So I go from a 12.5 to this 20.5. I don't have anything in between. So I have a 6.5, no, a 9.5 Creative Grids, a 12.5, and this 20.5. What size rulers do you have for squaring off your quilt blocks and your projects? Do you have one this big? This is perfect for squaring off those large quilt blocks and those smaller art quilts like love letters you see today. Let me know, what size do you have? Okay, so that's I use that to square that off, and you can see that it made a difference in making love letters square. I could check everything to make sure that it would read correctly. All right, and then lastly, I had to quilt it. How did I want to quilt this project? How would you have quilted love letters? You don't have a cutting mat that big. Okay. Wow. I can see why that would be a challenge. Let me jump in there. On YouTube, we have a comment here. I'm going to get rid of that. Fantastic. Okay, that's all done. Got rid of it, Elaine. Thank you for letting me know. So there's my Janome over there. You can see a little bit of it. I'm quilting love letters. And I decided that I was going to stitch in the ditch, in the seam of every letter. Do you stitch in a ditch? Do you stitch into your seams? I wanted to accentuate each letter. Each letter I want to accentuate it, and I did that with a special thread. I have two types of threads that I love to use for stitching a ditch. For stitching in the seam. Each letter is individually accentuated by stitching right there in the seam. Let me know, what do you like to stitch? Do you use special threads for stitching a ditch? Generally, we want to be able for that thread to disappear. When I stitch in a ditch, I don't want to see the thread. I want it to blend right into the seam. What about you? I like to use this thread. This is Bottom Line. It's a 60 weight thread by Superior Threads. I've just highlighted it in the carousel. I'll show it to you here on the overhead camera. So this is Bottom Line. It's a 60 weight thread, and they tell you exactly here in the, let's see if I can get this on camera so you can see it. There we go. Superior Threads Bottom Line. And the number is important. The number is the color, number 623. This is 3,000 yards. I always get the large spool. You see the 60 WT, that's the weight of the thread. That means it's a lighter thread. A 60 weight will blend right into that seam. It will almost disappear. You won't see it. And that's what I wanted for love letters. I wanted the thread to just blend right into the seam, so all you would see is the fabric and the letters. So you see it's Bottom Line, 60 weight, and the number is 623. 623, I don't know how it works, but it just does. This particular color, you can use it almost on any fabric. It will blend right in. It's not too light. It's just the right shade of gray for light to mid-tone colors. I love this thread. Now, of course, you can get it in this large spool, or you can get it in a smaller spool. And the smaller spool, it's still 623. 623, that's what I use all the time. It says 60 weight, and it's 1,400 yards. About half of this one, a little bit less. And guess what needle size you use? Do you ladies use this 60 weight thread? What needle size do you use for 60 weight thread? I like to use a 70-10 needle. I just highlighted that in the carousel here on Amazon. 70-10 needle. 70-10. I love this thread for stitch in the ditch. Now, if I don't want to use this thread, what is my alternative? An alternative is to use a monopoly or a invisible thread. And this is one. I'm going to highlight it in the carousel on Amazon. This is by Sulky. This is an invisible thread by Sulky. And I want you to notice what it says here. It says that it is invisible thread that is washable and dry cleanable. That's important. If you ever plan to wash something with this type of thread, you want to know that you can wash it, that it's not going to disintegrate in the wash or in the dryer, right? So this is an alternative to the superior weight 60 weight thread. To get an invisible thread, you want it to blend. Now, this thread has a sheen to it, and it can be seen sometimes, and maybe you don't want to see that against dark fabric. So you can get, and I highlighted in the carousel, you can get another type of invisible thread called monopoly by Superior Threads. I will also use the same size needle. You can get it in this invisible clear. They call it clear. And in the back, I love Superior Threads because it tells you not only they recommend what needle size. There it is, 70-10 top stitch for your home machine. And then it tells you, or a Microtech Sharp 68, or you use for a long arm machine a number 14 MR3. They tell you what needle size to use so that you can have success. So this is the clear. But you can also get monopoly in smoke. If you have dark fabric, you can get smoke, a darker monopoly. It's a invisible dark poly thread. Love it. I love having these options. Do you stitch in a ditch? Now, I used to do this quite often with these two. I don't use them as much as before, but they can be the right choice depending upon the project. Mostly now I use bottom line. That's just a personal preference. You have to test and see what you like. Okay? Let's see. Did I highlight everything? I think so. All right. Wow. I've gone through everything for love letters. We've looked at this quilt here, how it was made. The software was EQ8, where you can design your own quilt. You can color it any way you want. You can foundation paper piece, or you can use templates. You get to decide how you're going to make your quilt. If you prefer templates over foundation piecing, or do you want to rotary cut? In this case, you can't rotary cut. Now, you can color it the way you want and test with EQ8. You can create a library of information on your computer for every single pattern you have. The size, the yardage. You know what? I don't think I showed that to you. Did you ladies know that you can select the yardage? Let me show that to you because that's important. Because then you know what fabric to get and how much to get of that fabric. Let's go back to my computer. Okay, so here it is. Let me bring that in. Let's open the software. There we go. So I have a variety of colors right here on this software. I don't think I chose anything for the white. Let me click Design tab at the top. Then the next row is the fabric tool. And I'm going to pick this dark fabric for everything that is white. I'm going to click the spray can. On the left-hand side, there's a spray can under fabric tools. I want to spray that into everything that's white. And I hold down the command key when I click in the white area. Did you see that? Just like that, everything that was white was turned into the color that I chose. Now say, oh, I don't like that color. I want another color. Let me highlight the software again. And remember, you can get the software new for PC or you can get it for Mac. If you already have EQ87, you can upgrade. Now, I don't like that black. It's a dark blue, but it comes out black. Let me choose another color. I want to try something, let's see, so that you can really see the difference. Let's try this purple. Hopefully this will work. You see the purple there? The color changed. Now I just select the spray can. Then I go to the color that I want to globally change into the purple. I hold down the control key for PC or command for Apple, and I click that color that I want to globally change. So I'm clicking on that. Now everything that was black is now purple. You can change colors that quickly. I want to change the letters in love letter. I can do that as well. And the LOVE in the center. Say I want to do this pink. What is that tutorial about? This is all about designing your own fabric quilts. There was a question here on Amazon asking about the software. This software allows you to create quilts like you see behind me. I designed that quilt using this software. I can create a grid. I can then select the fabric and colors I want. And once that's all put together like you see here, I was giving an example of the design that I did with a art quilt called Love Letters. And I can put in LOVE inside the quilt in any size that I want. I can change the size. I can put in any blocks that I want and then change the coloring. That's what this software does. I can do anything I want by selecting the quilt blocks that I want, and then I can choose how to color the quilt. And I'm going to come in here and make everything that's white into that pink color. Maybe that wasn't a good choice. Then I do Command Z to undo it. I can change my tool, and I only want this one and this to be in that pink color. I hope that's helpful. These are all inside the software. You buy the software and you have all these fabulous tools to create amazing quilt designs. I love this software for designing. And you can easily change what you have done. If you want it to be a larger quilt or a smaller quilt, it's really up to you what you want to do. You get to decide. And so you can make it very personal. Make it very personal. Look, my scarf is getting all cockeyed here. Let me fix that. So that's what we have been working on. Thanks for stopping by. And don't forget, if you're watching on Amazon, don't forget to hit that follow button. If you want to watch me, you can get updates whenever I'm live here every Wednesday, 7 p.m. Unless, of course, I'm traveling and I'm out of town. But I am on Amazon every Wednesday, 7 p.m. And the new series is all about DIY projects. And this is the quilt that I just showed you how I made it using the software EQ8. This is called Love Letters. This is an art quilt. The software, how to print out the pattern pieces, how to put it together. Here is an example of one of the letters that I've made using yellow fabric, but you decide what you want to make. And all the tools that I use. Oh, you're welcome. My pleasure. I'm so glad that you asked the question. Don't hesitate. Always ask questions. That's why I'm here to help. So I think we've covered everything. And if you already have, like a lot of the ladies on YouTube already have this software, don't forget you can get any of these books to help you move to the next level. There's one for beginners, there's one for designing quilts, and my favorite is the library of all the quilt blocks. EQ8. I love it for designing, for DIY designing. You can look like and be a professional quilter designer in no time with EQ8. I love it. Now, let me see. Did I share everything? I think I did. Well, if you don't have any questions, I think I am done for tonight. Before I sign off, please let me know if you have any more questions about the tools I used for love letters. This is my DIY project for this new competition called DIY Hero. Those on YouTube, go in the description box below. All the tools I mentioned tonight, the software, the rotary cutter, the needles, the threads that I use to make love letters, all the links are right down below. If you want to get that design wall, you need the add a quarter ruler for foundation paper piecing, the thread that I talked about tonight that I use for stitching the ditch, that I use for almost every quilt that I stitch in the ditch. I use this thread. Love it. 60 weight thread. It's ideal. It just blends right into that seam and disappears. That's why when you look at love letters, the letters are accentuated. You see how each letter, the seam is accentuated? That's because I used this thread to go right down that seam. Good night, Elaine. Thanks for staying up with us tonight. I'm glad you enjoyed tonight's session on love letters. Now, you can vote for me to be the DIY hero. Voting opens up March 8th. Again, on YouTube, you can go to that link below the video and find out more about it. I want to be the DIY hero. DIY hero. And to celebrate my participation in that every single week for the next several weeks on Wednesdays here on Amazon Live, I am going to do a DIY project and show you the tools that I use to make the project so that you can do it too. So because you're a DIY person, right? You like to make your own quilts and other projects. It's going to be quilts, baskets, planner covers, all kinds of things that I'm going to talk about and show you how you can also DIY, how you can make it too. So I showed you tonight how you could make this love art quilt. It's 20 inches by 20 inches. I used this beautiful fabric from Connecting Threads. I love this choice of fabrics. Awesome. I'm so glad I have your vote, Elaine. Thank you. It opens March 8th. Okay, so this connecting threads fabric I just highlighted in the carousel. Beautiful, beautiful fabric. You choose what colors you want to make your love letters. All right, Sherry. Hello. I'm so glad to see you. I didn't know that you were there. You would love to learn more. All right. About EQ8. Sherry, you're just joining us, so you might have missed. I don't know if you saw that I talked about these other resources for EQ8. There are four of them. I've gone through the beginner book. Fantastic. I think it's a must have. If you have EQA, you plan on getting it, get the lessons for beginners. Then the next one I think is the block library. Then after that, get the books for designing. The books for designing. And I'm going to highlight that in the carousel for those watching on Amazon. They are easy to use books, step by step with diagrams. And in the designing ones, they take a project to help you learn the software and learn different techniques. So I like that. Lois, I'm so glad you enjoyed it. It's a little bit different, but this is going to be the theme for the next few Wednesdays. It's going to take these DIY projects, show you how I did it so that if you want to, you can do it too. Or just take some of the tools that I share and use it on your own personal DIY project. All right. I think that's it for tonight. Thank you for watching. Thanks for being a part of Quilt Conversations Live. And I will see you next week on Amazon Wednesday for another DIY project. And for those on YouTube and Facebook, I'll see you on Friday for Quilt Conversations Live, our Friday night date. Good to see you, Elaine, Sherry. Good to see you, Lois, Sonia, who was here tonight. So glad. And Tasha, Carol, thank you for joining me. Thank you, ladies. I'll see you in a couple of days. Awesome. I am so glad to be back sharing what I love, and that's quilting. I'm Geraldine Wilkins, the Living Water Quilter. I'll see you for another Quilt Conversations Live.